Hey everyone, how's it going? This is your old pal, the Bald Little Nerd, coming at you with another video. And from the title of this is likely to generate zero controversy on my channel and not spark any sort of provocative thoughts or debates. Ha ha ha. Uh, Obviously, the first thing that I'm going to talk about in this video are basically the argument that politics and musicians should not express their political views, right? Well, I hear this a lot. Like they'll say, "Well, you're a celebrity, you're a rock star. We don't care about your political views, right?" And I've noticed that it's often people who disagree with whatever political views that uh, they're talking about that tend to say this, right? Because typically the people who spout this, and yes, this is stereotypical, but it's quite true for the most part. Typically, the people who say this are who I would call conservative snowflakes, who get a bit butthurt when a rock star might say something that's left leaning, for lack of a better term. And I find that kind of ironic because since the beginning of rock music has always been, for lack of a better term, a bit rebellious, right? This is especially true in hard rock and metal. It's never been, oh, let's fit in to, you know, uh, the society and conform exactly to what is around us. It's never been about conformity. It's always been somewhat counterculture, right? So the fact that rock musicians would choose to express their political opinions really shouldn't surprise you. And the fact that so many rock musicians tend to be left leaning really shouldn't surprise you. Because if you look at which way does counterculture usually go, it much more typically goes to the left than to the right. Because if you go to the right, what are you really into? You're more into authority and following the rules and conforming to whatever it is, right? Whereas if you're left leaning, you tend to be more of a, again, these are very broad strokes. You tend to be more of a, quote, a rebel, for lack of a better term. So it's kind of natural that for the most part, rock musicians would more commonly espouse these views. Now, of course, this is not universally true. Plenty of rock musicians are, because rock's been around forever, are very, quote, right leaning or conservative as well. So it's not universally true, but I think the stereotype largely holds up. And personally, if a rock musician expresses a view I disagree with, a political view that I disagree with, I really couldn't care less for the most part. As long as they're not saying something completely abhorrent, it really doesn't matter to me what their views are. Because I care about their music and if I like it and yada yada yada. That's with rock musicians. That's pretty much all I care about. I really don't care what their views are because it doesn't matter to me. I don't go to rock musicians to affirm or challenge my quote political beliefs because it really has nothing to do with me. It all has to do with them, right? And I see why they want to express themselves. They basically have a platform. It's something they feel passionate about, so they're going to express themselves about it. And I really don't have a problem with that. I don't even have a problem with like movie stars doing that either. For the same reason. If they really want to express themselves, knock yourselves out. So, celebrities expressing their political opinions in general is fine. And, if you want to allow that to affect your opinion of whatever celebrity, that's fine. As for me, all I care about is the quality of their work, and that's pretty much it. You know, because if they say something stupid, whatever, I don't think of these people as like geniuses in every aspect of life. So again, their views don't matter much to me. So now we're going to get into the second part, and we're going to talk a little bit about my history of talking about politics on YouTube. Um, and we're going in the Wayback Machine here. And of course, then I'm going to discuss why I talk about politics as well. Um, I started on YouTube. My first video on this channel was uploaded on February 3rd of 2015. So I've been at this nearly 5 years now. It's really surprising, but that is the case. The first time I talked about anything political at all, and I didn't endorse any party or politician actually when I did my first political commentary video. I actually did it fairly soon after I started the channel. This was on it was on March 26th of 2015. I made a video talking about the Indiana Religious Freedom Act, which was actually prior to gay marriage being legal nationwide. That didn't happen until a couple of months later. That happened in June of 2015. It's amazing how much things have changed just since I've been doing these really silly videos. Um, so um, I was annoyed at the time that in Indiana passed this. Basically, what that law did is it allowed businesses to legally discriminate against gay people, right? And it also gave like a pharmacist, for example, if a pharmacist had legal protections if they had a problem with like giving somebody birth control, for example, if it was against their religious beliefs. And in the video, I made the argument, well, if you're in any sort of medical profession, you can't bring your religion into it. You are there to serve the public in whatever capacity that you're in the medical field. You just need to serve the public. If you can't do that, if your religion interferes with your duties, don't be in the medical field. Pick a job that won't interfere with your religion if your religion is that runs your life to that degree. So that was my basic argument in that video, and I came to the conclusion in that video that also that I hated Republicans and Democrats almost equally, and I talked about starting to vote again because it had been a few years since I had voted, and I talked about voting for third party, more or less, in that video. So the next time I talked about politics on my channel, yeah, I went several months. The next time was on October 15th of 2015. I made fun of Rand Paul talking about socialism for the first time. And the reason I made a little bit of fun of him is because he was basically, comparing Bernie Sanders, which, and by the way, this is the first time I ever talked about Bernie Sanders on my channel, ever, was in October of 2015. He was comparing like Bernie Sanders style programs to like Soviet Russia and all of these terrible things that happened in history and all that. And I found the comparison to be absolutely ridiculous. I still find that comparison to be absolutely ridiculous. When I hear Venezuela, it's like, no, but anyway, I'm getting off the weeds here. And I actually talked in that video more about Trump than I did Bernie Sanders. And I actually said some positive things about Trump in that video. I said it was positive that Trump was disrupting politics the way that he was, because even, this is when we were still obviously in the nomination process before Trump got the nomination. And I said he had more integrity than most politicians. And yeah, I would actually, as much as I despise Trump, and I feel nothing but disrespect for him and feel that he's doing a terrible job as president and all that, right? Despite all that, Trump doesn't cloak himself the way politicians do, right? Like, most politicians cloak themselves in a veneer of legitimacy. Whereas Trump, you know what you're getting with Trump. You know you're getting a total... He's very upfront about being just a total piece of crap that is a narcissistic megalomaniac. He's just awful, only in it for himself. With Trump, all that shit's out there for everyone to see, right? I knew it at the time, but I still respected him more than politicians. Most politicians, you know what? Even now, even with Trump, as terrible as he is, I still respect him more than I do most politicians. I'd say that's probably still true because you know what you're getting with Trump. You just know, whereas most politicians try to hide it and try to BS you, right? So there you go. And then I didn't talk about politics again for a long time. The next time I talked about it was May 3rd of 2016. And that was the first time I voted for Bernie Sanders in the Indiana primary. And that was the first time that I actually really promoted Bernie. And expressed my desire for him to become the Democratic nominee. Of course, at the time, I knew it was pretty unlikely for the 2016 race, but, you know, but again, what was funny at that point, I think Trump and Ted Cruz were the two main contenders in the Republican primary, and I actually said that if it had to be Ted Cruz or Trump, I would actually prefer Trump over Ted Cruz because I respected Trump more than Ted Cruz. That's still true. I still, despite, again, I still, yeah, I guess if I had to pick between Trump and Cruz, I'd still pick Trump. But I also stated in that video that I refused to vote for Hillary Clinton, and I stated my intention to vote third party if needed. So that was basically that. And then in the intervening years between, 2016 and, the Democratic primary starting in February this year, I talked about politics here and there, but I didn't talk about it a lot. And then, of course, in February of this year, when Bernie announced his candidacy, that's when I got more heavily involved this cycle and started more heavily talking about, and of course, talking about Bernie Sanders specifically more than I ever have before. And the reason for that is, I think personally that it's extremely important for me to promote what I think on my platform, what I think is the most beneficial way forward that we can move as an American society, right? I think Bernie Sanders is our only real shot. I've said this in other videos. I'm not going to go on and on about the man, but I really still think he's our best shot at a good result. And I just talk about politics a lot because it's something that I feel very strongly about, and I feel the need to share what I think, regardless if anyone agrees with me or not. It's fine. And once this cycle is over, right? So what am I going to do if, let's say Bernie doesn't get the nomination, right? Well, if that happens, if he does not get the nomination, I predict the Democrats will probably lose. I think Bernie's their only real shot at beating Trump. And the reason I say that is the other Democrats don't excite people the way Bernie Sanders does, right? Simply being anti-Trump is not going to be enough to get people to the polls. It's just not going to inspire anyone to vote against Trump because it's extremely difficult to defeat an incumbent president. Even one as deeply unpopular as Trump, it's tough to knock him out of there. And the only way to really knock him out is to bring somebody in who has genuine enthusiasm behind them that will get people to vote that normally don't vote. And there's only one candidate that does that. So we'll see what happens. If he doesn't get the nomination, I will probably just, complain about that a little bit and talk about voting third party. And that'll probably be it. I'll probably just leave... I'll probably largely leave politics alone at that point because, honestly, my interest in it will drop significantly again. Because there will only be no point in talking about it because we'll just have 4 more years of Trump, 4 more years of this ridiculous farce that we have. And that'll be that. So, anyway, I'm sure that this is going to spark some wonderful things down in the comments below. So anyway, that's it. If you like this, thumbs up. If you don't, boop boop. Thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper.